Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we are back for another week of exciting Joe adventures. That's right. As the letters page of G.I. Joe Real American Hero has been teasing for the last, literally 8 months. We're getting to 150, and we're there today. We are at G.I. Joe 150 today. That's right. It's another episode of Joe and Joe Illustrated. You new listeners, Joe and Joe is the podcast where I break down every episode of the cartoon in sequential order, every episode that's the original cartoon and the DIC cartoon, and we even did Extreme. And now we're working our way through the Real American Hero comic book, the Marvel series. We're at 150. We're just 5 issues away. 5 short weeks from now, we'll get to the wrap up of Larry Hama's epic Marvel run. And it's what a coincidence, happenstance, circumstance. We're talking about that this week because this week, of course, G.I. Joe 300 hit the stands. Ladies and gentlemen, or rather last week when you're hearing this. G.I. Joe 300, the final issue of IDW's G.I. Joe arc by Larry himself. Now, it's the numbers are cool because, 155 at Marvel, and then he did another, so I guess that would have been 145 over at IDW. So pretty much the same number, except if you take out, I guess you'd have to, if you remove the special missions. But then Larry did write other stuff that wasn't the ARAH stuff. I remember early in the IDW run, they had him writing some other the main Joe line that wasn't ARAH. So I'll bet you it's very similar output that he put into both companies' versions of G.I. Joe. And I just finished reading 300, so no spoilers, and we're not going to dig into the details of it. But I was satisfied with it. I was very surprised at the ending, at the way they ended it. That it tells me that there's that as they this is no real spoiler. They say it as much in there that there are plans in the future. So I don't think that's going to be the last. I don't have any insider information, but I don't think that's going to be the last we're going to see of Larry writing G.I. Joe. I think he's teased that enough on social as well. And it was a nice surprise to see our friend Diana Davis get a big shout out. She's awesome. If you guys don't follow her on Twitter, you should. And she's just great. She always chimes in with really useful information. I know she helped a lot with the Saturday morning stuff, and she's apparently been the go-to fact finder for the regular series for quite some time. And she's such a delight. I've run into her at multiple cons, and she's always friendly to chat with, and way more knowledgeable than anyone else I've ever met. And I met some Joe fans. She just knows her onions. So that was really cool. She got a legit, for real shout out in the last issue of G.I. Joe, published by IDW. So that's something for the wall. Congratulations, Diana, and thank you for all your hard work on that. It's fun. Maybe we'll dive into that kind of a wrap up. I can't. I'm not going to make you wait till I sequentially get to that number, because that is a long time. I'm an old man. I'm not getting any younger. I don't know. So maybe over Christmas break, we'll do a little something about it, but it was special. And that cover, boy, whoo, awesome. Really, really good stuff. Also really good stuff. Our friends, our sponsor, the Movies in a Meal podcast. They're killing it with that movie and TV talk. Give them a listen. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie. It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Penseriga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out one episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Now, while you're subscribing to the Movies and a Meal podcast, you're already subscribed to the Joe on Joe podcast. Rate and review both of our podcasts on your podcatchers. Say hello on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Joe on Joe Pod. Send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest on Joe on Joe, we are starting up a different phase. It's going to be called You on Joe, and it's all about you, the listener, and your specific favorite thing about G.I. Joe. So that should start up in about 6 weeks, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so if you want to get in on the ground floor and lock in your character, I believe right now my plan is to have the very first subject be, he's already taken, boys and girls, Sergeant Slaughter. How exciting is that going to be? It's going to be great. So send me an email, joeonjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to be a guest on that, and we'll get you scheduled in. And in talking about podcasting and stuff, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I tweeted this out. Follow this. If you saw this tweet, there's a little garbage amount there. I was recently a guest on my friend John Carl, JC, and Rod's show called Cyclops is Waiting for Me. So if you think I can blather on about G.I. Joe, tune in to this week's episode of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, and I believe next week's as well, because I spoke so much about Nightcrawler and my love of Nightcrawler and X-Men and my love of the X-Men that they turned it into a two-parter. And 2 1-hour length episodes, where I believe their standard length is about 30 to 40 minutes. So I basically tripled the length of their show because I had that much to say about the X-Men. They're a subject that are near and dear to me, and it was a lot of fun to be on there, a lot of fun to guest art. So their podcast is called Cyclops is Waiting for Me. That's from one of the great lines that Jean Grey says to Wolverine in the X-Men animated show. They do similar to what we did with the G.I. Joe animated. They go through each episode, in sequential order. They're leading up to the release of the new animated X-Men series on Disney Plus. And it was just an absolute blast. And I love talking X-Men, and it's so much Nightcrawler information spilled out of me. I didn't know I had that much Nightcrawler in me. But I love Kurt Wagner, and it was a lot of fun. So give them a listen. Cyclops is Waiting for Me. It's the Nightcrawler episode, a big two-parter. We talk a little bit G.I. Joe, but really not that much. I'm not going to tease you there and wait for some giant Joe data to drop. But we do. This subject does come up. Basically, why is a G.I. Joe guy on an X-Men podcast? I'll tell you what, though. Why a G.I. Joe guy is excited about G.I. Joe this week. I got my Dr. Mindbender and my Sergeant Slaughter in the mail. Speaking of Sergeant Slaughter. I got them in the mail this week from Hasbro. They look great. The Mindbender box is awesome, and I slid him open, checked out the figure. He's so good. Like, I love Dr. Mindbender. I know you're kind of like you're a Mindbender guy, or you're not a Mindbender guy. I'm definitely a Mindbender guy. I love the shirtless Mindbender. It's so insane. And the accoutrement they gave him, all the various scientific lab equipment, is really great and detailed, and I think it looks awesome. And the Sergeant Slaughter, I haven't opened the box yet, but we know the Sarge is great, and his box looks really good. I like that they captured both the comic book and the animated version of him on that, and the real life version of him. It's cool. So I've been watching a lot of wrestling lately. So I've been actually watching a lot of Sergeant Slaughter because I'm prepping for that first issue of You on Joe. Spoiler or teaser or whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be exciting. The other big Joe news. Didn't even have this in my notes. Let me get this right. Yeah. Mission Critical arrived. The board game, the Kickstarter board game from Renegade. Mission Critical. This is the 3D figure version board game playing game. So I haven't opened it yet, so I haven't dug into it. But that arrived also with Operation Cold Snap for the trading card built deck builder game. That arrived last week as well. So I like that they're getting this stuff out in time for the holidays. I was asking a question from some Joe buddies, and none of us really knew the answer to this. I want to know what's going on with Super 7 and the first wave of those deluxe Ultimate figures. Are they sitting on a cargo, like for real, sitting on a cargo steamer somewhere that, they can't afford, that the taxes are so big to get out of? Is that what's going on with those things? Because they're really overdue. And it'd be nice to get an update on those. If anyone out there knows, reach out, let me know, tweet me, whatever. Or if you're not on Twitter anymore, Instagram me. Take a picture of your answer on whatever social media you're using, turn it into an Instagram post, then tag me in it. I really want you to jump through those hoops for me, and I appreciate it. I also appreciate each and every one of you listeners. You guys are great. And so...
You were saying?
I was. And this is the segment where we look at comic books that were on the shelves during the month of the book in question that we're talking about. So in this case, G.I. Joe 150 is, and I apologize once again. My dog Strikes. She always likes to, enjoy dinner as we're recording. So I'm going to give this a pause for a sec. And we're back. Mary Jane hasn't done that in a while. It's nice to see old habits not dying hard. So, so we're looking at DC Comics that were on the shelf. Now, this is G.I. Joe 150. It's cover dated July of 1994. So put your head back in the Wayback Machine. Where were you in July of 1994? And technically, we know this was actually, calendar-wise, it was May of 1994. So where were you in May of 1994, actually? I was just finishing up my first year of college. I was 30 pounds heavier. Grades weren't great. But the University of Illinois, they asked me back. So, so I kept coming back, and it was a great year. But yeah, May of 94, I would have been finishing up my first year of college. So where were you guys in May of 1994? I'll tell you what, I'll tell you where the Superman books were. They were in the middle of the Worlds Collide crossover, which is the crossover with the Milestone universe. It's Steel and Superman and Superboy. They all crossed over with Icon and Hardware and everyone in the Milestone universe. And one of the cool things about this book, I talked a couple months back about that Lobo cover where it had the pilums, like the color forms on them. They did that. This is the other book they did that on. I think I mentioned that there was another book, and I couldn't remember exactly what it was. It's the Worlds Collide #1. And if you look at the cover, you see it's a cityscape, just kind of a generic big long shot of a cityscape, and then there's a bunch of superheroes kind of randomly flying. It doesn't look like a standard cover. It's because it's not. Those were peel 'em and stick 'ems. So there's a sticker sheet in there that you would peel off and make whatever cover you wanted to. I love that concept. I thought it was so cool. So that's happening this month. That was a fun crossover. On Wonder Woman 88, I'm not going to sit here and say Brian Boland ever has drawn a bad pencil, because he's amazing, and his Wonder Woman covers are epic. However, I will say this Superman that he draws on this cover historically has always stood out to me as like just the wildest. I never would have expected that version of Superman to come out of Brian Boland. He's very, it's like Brian Boland's interpretation of an Image character. It's just, he's massive and he's scowly, and he gave him the mullet because Superman was rocking the mullet at the time. So like, if you ever see it, look up Wonder Woman 88. You'll see what I'm talking about. Brian Boland's a master. So this is not slagging on it, but his rendition of Superman's always stood out like, whoa, that is a shocking drawing of Superman. The other really important comic book that came out this month is Flash number 92. That is the first appearance of Bart Allen Impulse. I believe there was a cameo in 91, and 92 is considered his first appearance. He's running out of a time tunnel, if I remember what he's doing on the cover there. And this would be the character that would really reinvigorate Flash, I think, in a big way. They gave him, Impulse ended up getting his own series, ran 90 some issues, like 99 issues or something like that. or 98 or even 100. I imagine they would have went to 100. Yeah. Maybe it was Superboy that went to 100 and stopped. But either way, they both ran a very long time. And Impulse is a great character. I wish they would just leave him as Impulse and not every time they've tried to age him up and turn him into Kid Flash or whatever. It never really works. Just leave him be Impulse and let him just be that character because he's great and he's perfect. I really enjoyed him as a character. It just absolutely worked. So Flash number 92 came out this month.
You were saying?
Now we're looking over at Marvel Comics. Marvel ForceWorks number 1. So ForceWorks is the reworking. It's not a spin-off. It's spun out of because Avengers West Coast closed shop. So it's more of a spin out than a spin off. And it's kind of a reworking of Avengers West Coast. And it was the hardcore, more aggressive version of the Avengers, right? U.S. Agent, Spider-Woman, Iron Man. There was that ghostly looking dude whose name was just on the tip of my tongue. It's called like Tangent. It's not Tangent, or it's they actually used him in the Iron Man cartoon. In fact, actually, the Iron Man cartoon of the mid-90s, if you ever watch it, it kind of is the ForceWorks. Hawkeye's in it. It's kind of the ForceWorks team, actually. That's what that Iron Man cartoon was. It's not a terrible cartoon, I gotta be honest. It's really not that bad. But ForceWorks was extreme, and it was written by Abnett and Lanning, and those guys are great. So it is, while it's got that whole force and it's got that extreme tag to it. It's not a bad book. It's really not. It's done by good, and I think it's Liam Sharp. Let me click on here. I think Liam Sharp. Oh no, Tom Tenney. Liam Sharp did it's Tom Tenney. I thought Liam Sharp had something to do with it. I am wrong, but it's Liam Sharp-esque artwork is what it is. But yeah, Wonder Man, U.S. Agent, Spider-Woman, Scarlet Witch, Tony Stark. Yeah, not Hawkeye. That's right. I think Hawkeye was like, you guys are crazy. That might have been when they sent. Is that when they sent Hawkeye to the Thunderbolts? Did we get to the Thunderbolts yet? I don't think we're at Thunderbolts. No, we're not at Thunderbolts yet. They don't exist yet. Right. Getting ahead of myself here, kids. But yeah, so Force works. So it's funny on surface, but as someone who's read them all, it's not a terrible book. It's got all the surface problems. It's got all the surface problems that those extreme books of the 90s had. Cable 13 takes the cake as one of the worst covers I've ever seen on a comic book. They reworked the logo. I don't know if that was meant to be a long-term change or they were just trying to do it for this one issue, but that logo is garbage, and then the rest of it is just bad. I've always hated this cover, and I think it starts with that change of the logo. That's just a terrible logo, and I think they recognize it. I don't think the next issue has that same logo either. So yeah, don't do that again, Cable. Just don't. Anything else of import this month? What else are we looking at here? Spider-Man 29 continues. Emma Frost and Bobby Drake, like, they share a body. This was a weird time. Like Emma's psyche got into like Bobby's body or something like that, and she ended up, I believe the deal was she ended up doing more with his power than he ever did, so then he felt like a loser because it took someone else to realize his alpha level power of being a mutant and all that stuff. So then he felt bad about himself, blah blah blah. I long been on the record saying I don't like Emma Frost being a good guy. I don't think she should be a good. It's fine if she dallies and works with them every once in a while, but I don't like Emma Frost being on the side of the Angels. I think she is a bad person at her core, and I don't believe it. I don't believe it when she works with the good guys. I really don't. The Generation X is the closest because they gave her a reason. She had the whole redemption thing about getting her Hellions killed. But then to just have her be a member of the X-Men, I was like, nah, it's not for me. Not for me, son. A lot of X-Men books this month, though. Oof. It's a whole lot of books that start with X. And then W with Wolverine and Cable. Spider-Man and X Factor. Just man, X-Books were flooding the market. Oh, Galactic Guardians, that was a 4-issue spinoff of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it featured a 1,000-year-old Simon Williams, and it was in Firelord and Ghost Rider of the future, Martin X, Phoenix of the future, and I can't see who that other person was, but the fact that it had a not time toss, just a 1,000-year-old Simon Williams, I was like, I'm on board for that.
You were saying?
Now, these books came out in the calendar month of May of 1994. So if you were to head to the movie theater, you would have seen films such as, on May 6th, Three Ninjas Kick Back. You would have seen that. I would not have seen that, because I would not have wanted to see that. No. Dana Carvey is in a movie called Clean Slate. I have seen this. He gets his memory wiped, but he's also the key witness in a murder. Is he not turtly enough for you? That's a rough, May 6th, it's a rough weekend at the movie theater. I got to be honest. It's a rough weekend. On May 13th, the Spike Lee film Crooklyn, but the huge film on May 13th was The Crow. I'll tell you what I was doing in May of 1994. I was going to see The Crow about 6 times in the movie theater. That changed the game. Written by David Shaw, who David does the signings, the Halloween signings at Golden Apple every year with John Carpenter. And I didn't realize, I met him through that, like after a couple of years, and I didn't realize that he was the writer on The Crow. And then it finally, I put it 2 and 2 together. And the next year he came in, and I was just like, my mouth was full of garbage because how much I loved The Crow. So I couldn't be effusive enough with my praise over how great The Crow is. I think The Crow is just a fabulous movie. Obviously overshadowed by the death of the really, really great, talented Brandon Lee. And that's the real shame of it. Because that should have been, and would have been, not should have been, it would have been the launching point for just an epic career for him. He would have absolutely done whatever he wanted to do. It's just sad tragedy. But that movie is fantastic. And I do think that while it certainly was very successful for a long time, very popular with a lot of people, I think then that tragedy kind of ultimately overshadowed the movie for probably just 94, maybe after the initial like 5 or 6 year buzz of people going like, yeah, it's a great movie. I think people forgot about it because you kind of want to forget about the sad stuff. But I feel like I'm seeing in the last, say, 5, 6, 10 years, people really revisiting it and remembering how great The Crow was, because The Crow was just fabulous. On May 20th, the not fabulous sequel to Aladdin, Return of Jafar, came out. I've probably seen it. I'm glad I don't remember it. Also, the movie Maverick, starring Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, and James Garner. This was a fun movie. Richard Donner, he's a brilliant director. It was a fun movie. It's too bad that Mel Gibson made a whole lot of great movies that you revisit and you go, bleh. Beverly Hills Cop 3, not a fun movie. An absolute mistake on all levels. This is the film that famously Eddie Murphy said on, he might have been on Arsenio. He was on one of the late night talk shows. Maybe it was Arsenio, maybe it was Jay Leno. And he said, John Landis will work with Vic Morrow again before I do, or something along those lines. Vic Morrow famously dying in a tragic accident on the set of The Twilight Zone, which is its own story that we're not going to get into as far as culpability and things like that. But that wound was still relatively fresh. And that was the essence of what Eddie Murphy said about his experience working with John Landis on Beverly Hills Cop 3. So take that what you will, everyone. Having said that, I believe they are revisiting it and doing an updated version of Beverly Hills Cop. Not John Landis. I think actually the guy who directed the Coming to America sequel, I think, is directing it, which I enjoyed. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. I loved Dolomite. I thought his Dolomite movie was not Dolomite. Not Dolomite. What was it? Yeah, Dolomite is my name. I loved that movie. I watched that movie like 3 times. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So if that is the guy that's directing the new Beverly Hills Cop, that gets me excited. The Flintstones also out this month, May 27th. This was huge. You guys remember the marketing push on this? This was massive. John Goodman, Rick Moranis, Elizabeth Perkins, and then Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble, which was always questionable. Not because of Rosie's personal life, but because I think quietly everyone knew Betty was the hottie neighbor, and Rosie's, she's fine. Yeah, she's got her issues, but that was always the weird cast. Rick Moranis was great in it. John Goodman was born to play Fred Flintstone, and it was a lot. The movie had a lot. It was a lot riding on its shoulders. And ultimately, I think it collapsed underneath the weight of it. Then the sequel, I think, was not even mentionable. But there you go. So that's it.
You were saying? Now, mass is ready.
We're talking G.I. Joe 150. This is it. This is the one the letters page has been teasing us about for 8 months. Cover, Phil Gossier. And it's got Cobra Commander fighting Snake Eyes in an Uzi sword battle, which is great. Doesn't really play out that way in the comic, though. That was the surprise. That was my big surprise is how this played out. Remember, I'm reading these again for the first time in like 94, 5, 10, 25 years. Yeah, I haven't really revisited this in that long, so I didn't remember what happened, and it doesn't really play out this way. However, it plays out fun, and it's got a good cover. It's the battle you demanded, listener, you reader, you demanded this. Snake Eyes versus Cobra Commander. It's so funny. So this is funny. I wonder if this is a joke, or if this is. So the cover, and let me know what you think, guys, and let me know if you ever noticed this. The cover says the battle you demanded, Snake Eyes versus Cobra Commander. And Snake Eyes, there's a small trademark logo underneath it, because apparently they had a trademark Snake Eyes. And Cobra Commander, they had a trademark, so they put a trademark logo. And they also put a trademark logo underneath or next to the U. So the letter, the U. So you, reader, are trademarked by Marvel Comics. Is that a mistake, or is that them making a joke? Because if it's making a joke, I love it, and it's absolutely hilarious. If it's a mistake, that's also funny. But if it's them being cheeky of saying like, all right, legal is making us put a trademark on Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander, because we also have a trademark on Real American Hero, and there's a copyright symbol on the word G.I. Joe. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 copyright or trademark marks. 6 include the indicia in the upper left corner next to Scarlet. So you have 6 trademark marks. 7, including Marvel Comics. You have 7 trademarks and or copyright marks in the top quarter of this comic book page. I think that's funny, and it makes me think they put the U in there as a joke, which is really funny. So kudos to you guys. And I don't know, has anyone ever noticed that before? Because it's pretty humorous, but it's a good looking Snake Eyes. It's kind of, I don't think this is. I mean, it's still supposed to be that version of him, the V whatever. What V are we up to? 4 or 5 with him, where I've been saying that he kind of looks like a serial killer, with the full face mask. But it's Phil's kind of run with it and given him his own body armor thing, which I think works. Like, it's starting to feel like his own version of Snake Eyes. Like he's slowly morphing, you know what I mean? So I'm cool. That's cool with that. I like that. Let me get the proper V here. So this would have been the V6 era. Yeah. So this would have been the V6, which was like the 94 one where he absolutely looks like he looks like a guy who killed camp counselors. That's my take on that era. It's not, yeah, it's weird. So what I'm saying is I like Phil's rendition of it. That's what I'm saying.
Yo, Joe!
Transcarpathia. So remember we left off, Storm Shadow had said, hey guys, my boy Billy's been kidnapped. I have to go there. I might not come back, so I just wanted to say my goodbyes. So he traveled from Utah all the way up to the Sierras to tell his goodbyes to Snake Eyes. And I always thought that was weak sauce because it was also really saying, come get me because I'm going to be in trouble. Without actually saying, you think you can help a man out because it's going to be rough. So that was, it was a little weak sauce, Storm Shadow. But what it does is it gives us an excuse to have this become a rescue op by Snake Eyes. Not problem. I'm gonna say it's a problem, but the problem is that it just happens. Like all of a sudden it happens because it needs to happen, not happens organically. But it's a cool little bit. So we see Storm Shadow jumps out of a moving train over a ravine, and we don't really know who it is, but there's an electronic narrator saying, "I have a scanner switching to infrared. 2 objects exiting the express train from Barovia on the river trestle." The 2 objects being would be Storm Shadow and his giant bag.
Yo, Joe!
Now he's leaping into the river. The narrator says solid heat reading on the bigger blip, has to be a human. And then, in something that really was not done a lot at the time, I know they did it. I think they did it. Remember they did it a little bit in the comic before, but it really wasn't a regular thing. They did it. They do a secondary. It's a word bubble, but it's a narration really. And they're using a different color. So to certify that it's a different character speaking. So someone else says, verify for mass. Some Barovian might be teaching his dog to swim the hard way. Then the original narrator says, mass checks out. We've got an intruder. And this is as Storm Shadow is diving into the water. We see him swim, little Aquaman. Now this is crazy. Their sensors pick up zippers and snaps. So Storm Shadow is getting out of his street clothes. He's got his ninja outfit underneath it, and that's how sensitive these things are. Very superhero-y page. Storm Shadow leaping across the moon. It's got a lot of Moon Knight, got a lot of Batman. Spawn would have been an influence at the time. So that's kind of neat, and I think it works for this.
Yo, Joe!
Those sensors, they pick up a bubbling noise, which is the oxygen regulator. And then the secondary narrator says we better send a flag up the chain of command. And we see Storm Shadow swimming towards a grate. And they can tell that he's cutting through the sluice grate with an oxyacetylene torch. So they can tell what he's like. There's no cameras. I don't know. Well, there's a camera once he gets inside, but I don't think there's cameras on him outside. Maybe there is. Maybe that's a camera. But they say he's heading right into the cyberspace matrix. So now we're getting into cyberspace matrix talk. And that is a new addition, I would say. It's a new wrinkle to the discussion. It's one that wasn't really brought up before. I didn't approve this. I'm not sure where we're going with it. But now we have Dr. Mindbender also inextricably becomes Dr. Mindbender version 2, which is the 93 series. And this is where he wears purple and yellow, and instead of the monocle, he's just got the tech visor monocle over his eye.
Yo, Joe!
And years before the movie The Matrix, he had given us the standby to enter the Matrix. So once again, G.I. Joe ahead of the game. Hollywood stealing from G.I. Joe. We have a fun 2-page spread. Now, it's well rendered. I'm saying fun, and I'm not saying great. Here's why. It's gross. It is a nice it's really well rendered, so it's not knocking it, but it's a well rendered 2-page spread of Storm Shadow in a mouth, kind of like it's like a series of tongues and mouths coming out of the walls. It's like that. It's like the environment around him is shifting, very much like The Matrix, 6 years before the movie The Matrix. And script, and the name is Slam Dance in the Cyber Castle. Script by Larry Hama, pencils by Phil Gossier, inks by Crusher Wallace, coloring by Shy, lettering Vicky Williams, editor is Mike Lackey, in chief Tom DeFalco. And as Storm Shadow makes his appearance in this like gross mouth, there's some eyeballs in the mix too, environment, Cobra Commander slides down a tongue. And he says, "Welcome to Dr. Mindbender's cyberspace matrix, an environment designed to befuddle and confound the heightened senses of a ninja." So that's where we're at. So now we've introduced that Mindbender has developed an anti-ninja hologram matrix.
Yo, Joe!
Which is something to say. Cobra Commander says they're simply electronic countermeasures that will nullify your sensory advantage. It doesn't stop Storm Shadow from taking a swipe at Cobra Commander, however, and all he does is swipe away some of Cobra's, he's wearing his hood and like his uniform, and you see that he is wearing this armor beneath it. And so while that happens, all these hands come out of the walls and kind of hold Storm Shadow as Cobra Commander uses his arm cannon to blast Storm Shadow with like a heat blast. This cyber tech stuff is really out of nowhere. Like, it's really comes out of nowhere. And I'm wondering, I'm going to call up the file card here. It's funny. The file card for this version of Mindbender talks about him being buried in the tanker, and it says that he bionically enhanced his badly damaged body with various machine parts, so he barely escaped with his life, and he improved himself and re-enlisted with Cobra. So is this just an excuse to work in the whole Mindbender as a cyborg now storyline? I feel like it is. It's a thing.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, in the High Sierras, Snake Eyes is staring at the setting sun. We are just showing Snake Eyes' face as a snake sneaks up on him, and it gets stabbed by an arrow, actually, from a crossbow bolt from Scarlet, and she is screaming at him. How could you tune yourself out so much that a rattler could sneak up behind you? And she's very angry that Snake Eyes almost got bit by a snake. I would be like, woman, I am trying to chill. Why do you think I have this wolf with me? The wolf is watching me. He's got my back.
Yo, Joe!
And he caresses her, holds her chin. And she, as often happens in Snake Eyes scenes, the accompanying character has to do a lot of the narrative heavy lifting. Just ask Lieutenant Columbo. And she says, "You're getting set to go to Transcarpathia, aren't you? Like, you're going to go on a fool's errand to fill an obligation to Storm Shadow because you got some sort of ninja psychic wavelength that Storm Shadow's in trouble." And he shows her his tattoo. And she's like, I know. The bond between those who have been through combat together is a brotherhood sealed in blood and watched over by the ghosts of those who fell. So you do what you have to do. So, I appreciate it. Like, I get it. I get what she's throwing down. She says, Timber and I will be here when you return. So, I feel like we've seen variations on this many times over the years with Snake Eyes, especially in Storm Shadow. He goes in Barovia alone, he goes here alone, he goes there alone. But, it always works. I like the choices. I like the camera choices here. You start with a full body shot of both of them to kind of set the mood, and then you peel back a little bit to give us kind of to really, by pulling the camera back, for me, what it does is it says, this is a conversation about life, not a conversation about this moment. That kind of like what I said, like, you're always doing this. Like, this is not a thing that's not going to go away. We get close up of Snake Eyes and his determination, and then Scarlet and her resignation. And then you pull back and you get, again, a shot of like life for them. And it's her talking to a wolf, and her words are saying, "We'll be here for you when you return." And Snake Eyes once again going off alone. I don't know why Scarlet wouldn't go with him.
Yo, Joe!
In Transcarpathia, Storm Shadow is coming to. He was unconscious, and he is in a 3-way brainwave scanner. So we've got Baroness, Storm Shadow, and Billy all in improvements on Dr. Venom's original brainwave scanner. Previous scanner, according to Cobra Commander, could only create a dull, desensitized zombie. Now we are capable of changing a subject's entire point of view to match our own. It's like always being able to win an argument. That's a great explanation. So they're going to zap them, and now we get, this is actually our first full look at the newly teched out Dr. Mindbender. In the comic book, we don't really have any explanation of why he's now suddenly a cyborg and teched out. We really don't. But que sera, sera. Like,
Yo, Joe!
And they get zapped with these like mental electrical bolts. And here comes Slice and Dice walking in. And Cobra Commander tells them that Mindbender has made this castle ninja-proof. Which is like, you guys, it's time for you to move out, because you're just ninja'd. And they don't believe it. They think Mr. Smarty Pants is going to come looking for his Cobra ninjas to save him, because Snake Eyes is going to come for Storm Shadow. And Cobra Commander's like, well, if you believe that, I want a Mindbender. Why don't you give them a glimpse of what your cyber matrix is going to be? And this is a line that should have been in the movie The Matrix. It's a shame that the Wachowskis did not use this line. Consider them matrixed. I want to go back to the movie The Matrix and use that line so much. Anytime they plug in, I want, like, it was the operator, right when they put Neo back in, just go, consider him matrixed.
Yo, Joe!
And now they're in an illusionary world where it's not those mouths, it's like the boiling pits of hell. And Cobra Commander is like a flying demon with wings and guns and stuff. So essentially what it is he essentially turns this castle, or wherever he puts this technology, into a version of the Danger Room, the X-Men's Danger Room, speaking of X-Men. And he makes these like 3D holograms seem so real that he confounds any sense that any human has. How Cobra Commander is able to like navigate it, maybe it's because that uniform he has on. They don't really address it, I don't believe.
Yo, Joe!
So Slice and Dice quickly they think they die, and then they turn it off. They've been unmatrixed. Consider yourself matrixed. They're back in reality, and they're really quite off-put. So much that Dice backs into the Baroness, who is in the middle of getting her brainwashing done. I'm throwing this out there now, I really like Gossier's renderings of Slice and Dice. I think he does a really good job with it. Dice kind of looks a little bit like he's kind of got a Wolverine meets Hawkeye thing going on. But overall, I think they do it's a good rendering of these two dudes. And, they've been around long enough. They're kind of extended family at this point.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, actually not meanwhile, 3 days later in W Land, Cuckoo Land, Flint and Jay, who, remember last issue, they had a real good issue. This covert meetup with Snake Eyes has turned into a cluster F foul up, she says. Flint, he says, that's for sure, Lady J. So basically they are supposed to meet up with Snake Eyes, and they can't find him. That's what it sounds like. And they've been met with a couple of Cobra detonators are hot in their tails. So they've got a missile lock, the Cobras do, on Flint and Jay, and they're going to blow them out of the forest, I guess would be. And someone says, smoke 'em, Cyber Viper.
Yo, Joe!
And if that's not a cue for everyone's favorite ninja to make his appearance. I don't know what is, because here he comes swooping out of the trees like a demon possessed, and he proceeds to go ham on these vipers, the cyber viper. Just everybody's dead. Like, he cuts the cyber viper's arm off. I'm going to say, Snake Eyes, I don't think you knew he was a cyber viper. I think you were just cutting a man's arm off. And I respect it. Now, that means we've got to add to the Snake Eyes kill count, which is... Where's my... Uh-oh. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. I was like, where'd my Snake Eyes kill count go? Because I think Snake Eyes kills... Oh, hold on. That guy's still alive. Let's see here.
Yo, Joe!
We're on the next page. Flint and Jay are rolling up, and Snake Eyes has blood on his sword. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. There's 4. I think he killed 4 dudes. He's not taking them prisoner. Yeah, and later on, they're just in the they're propped up in the, jumping ahead a little bit, right? They're propped up in the 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're kind of propped up in the... So Snake Eyes just took out 4 more dudes. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thought I lost my Snake Eyes kill count piece of paper. So look at Snake Eyes here. He doesn't look like a serial killer here for some reason. He has for the last 10 or 12 issues. This is better. This is much more feels like Snake Eyes. Although the sword, the hilt on that sword is incredibly massive. I don't know how I feel about that. That is a very large hilt on that sword. Having said that, fun. So they say, follow us to the camp. Snake Eyes will lead you home.
Yo, Joe!
And at the camp, Snake Eyes gets debriefed by Hawk and Stalker. Apparently, according to Stalker, Cobra has a secret weapon that works against ninjas, and we see footage. Cobra Commander released footage of him beating up Storm Shadow. And, well, it's actually, Joe's got the footage. I apologize. Joe's got the footage. Then Mindbender catches their camera, and he snips the drone. So that's as much footage as they got. So the Joes saw that Storm Shadow got caught, and that somehow Cobra Commander himself was physically able to best him, which is rare. And whatever Cobra Commander has, it certainly worked against Storm Shadow, according to Stalker. And Hawk says nothing short of attack nuke is going to stop Snake Eyes from popping a can of firefight in there. And Stalker says, I know. I just figured I'd give him an out if he wanted it.
Yo, Joe!
So Snake Eyes marches into the tent where all the munitions are. Turns out this is the same tent that the General Liederkrantz and Wolfgang have set up their mess hall. Snake Eyes doesn't care. He's literally just there for the weapons. And so he drops his swords on the dinner table, and the guy's all upset. But then he quickly leaves as Snake Eyes starts throwing his throwing stars away. So what I'm perceiving this as, and they've done this a couple times, but I don't remember if they've done it. If this is maybe the first time they did it, where this is Snake Eyes shedding the trappings of the ninja because they have an anti-ninja machine. So now he's going to embrace the commando. I know in more recent years, they've literally told that story, where they've said enter the commando. I can't remember if they did that. Did they do that already in ARAH? But that's what he's doing here. And we're leading up to a great arm up scene, but it starts with this panel of Snake Eyes in just his bodysuit, which is, it's a black bodysuit, looks pretty muscled, but I like that he's just disarming himself, all his throwing stars, all of his sharp weapons, etc.
Yo, Joe!
And this is the page of Rambo getting ready to go in a war. Your soldiers getting strapped up. It's Snake Eyes putting all of his web gear on. He's packing a shotgun. He's loading up grenades. He's putting ammo belts over his shoulder. He puts a trench knife in his chest, his chest holster, and he literally even puts the Rambo headband on his head. So he is absolutely embracing the commando now because he knows he can't rely on the ninja.
Yo, Joe!
Which is a cool move. And I also like that Larry's doing this without really calling it out. You have to really think about what he's doing. He's not saying, hey, someone's saying like, like he's gonna not be a ninja now. He's gonna, it's just saying, Hawk here just says, looks like Snake Eyes decided to go into his bad to the bone LERP mode, which is like the military mode, but they're not explicitly saying to counter the ninja stuff, but that's what it's for. And his stalker says, the vernacular of the street, my man is strapping. And he is. He's got pistols. He's got, it's a grenade launcher. He's got, I don't know if it's an M. I don't know what M. It's a heavy machine gun, something that Roadblock would carry. And he's got a submachine gun. He's got ammo belt strapped. His face is, and this is interesting, he's choosing to go without his mask. So he is going straight up, like, just straight, here's my face. I'm a soldier. I am horribly scarred. And his face is not attractive.
Yo, Joe!
Now, back at the castle, this is fun because it's actually the second panel. You almost miss it, the way they draw it. Snake Eyes is sitting in the driver's seat, but he has the dead Cyber Viper, and I'm going to say dead, sitting on his lap, so it looks like the Cyber Viper's driving. And the other dead Vipers are in their respective seats, but they're all slunched over, also dead. So as he makes his way up to the castle, there's a couple of Vipers there who are, just having a chatty conversation. They're like, oh, hey, this is that patrol that went out with the Cyber Viper. Bunch of cold fish, those creeps. Like, it's a fun little dialogue between them. I hear they got to mix 30 weight oil in their oatmeal. Yeah, or they don't start in the morning. Whack, whack. Look out, I'm going to harass this guy. Hey, man, pull over. So they think they're being cheeky. And that's all a very serene and sedate page. Like, it's the calm before the storm.
Yo, Joe!
And as he gets closer to the detonator, he gives him the old, we are wondering if your papers are in order. Like he's having fun with them. But then the Cyber Viper's not responding. And then it's not until he threatens to have to climb into the detonator to see what's up when Snake Eyes pops out the top, grabs that guy, and hauls him back in. Yo,
Joe!
We get a snap, crackle, pop for the sound effect. I'm going to give him a kill. That pop being that Viper's neck. So now we've got a Viper who is reading Inside Cobra, the spring 94 issue. Once again, proving Cobra has the best infrastructure around. They have their own vacation packages. They have their own magazines. Spring 94 makes me think it's a quarterly magazine about the goings-on and the culture around being a member of Cobra. It is pervasive, and I adore that they're continuing that because it's in the cartoon, it's in the comic book. Cobra is a well-organized operation. I feel like that's got to be from Destro and the Crimson Twins influence, not Cobra Commander. But this Viper who is going to check out, because like what happened to this guy? He also gets his neck snapped, and I say snap because it is a snap sound, and if that snap is good enough for Gwen Stacy, it's good enough for this Viper. Snake Eyes looks like a man possessed, and when he snaps that guy's neck. There's a couple guys on the roof that think they saw what they saw.
Yo, Joe!
And they were right to be suspicious because Snake Eyes launches a missile at them. Lots of good sound effects on this page. Kathoom, foosh, foosh. Snake Eyes blows open the doors, and the detonator rolls right into the castle.
Yo, Joe!
So this is that moment in the movie where the vehicle rolls in and everyone shoots it up, and then the smoke clears, and then they're they realize there's no one in the driver's side. There's no one driving it. Like if the Batmobile rolls up and everyone shoots at the Batmobile, and you realize Batman's not even in the Batmobile. That's what this moment is. It's foreshadowed. So Snake Eyes isn't in the vehicle. He's hanging out in the smoke, and he pops out of the smoke with his guns blazing, and makes the attack. So no complaints about how this is told. But by having him in that front page, like or that first panel, there's only 3 panels on this page. It does narratively keep us abreast of where he is, but it kind of ruins the surprise of that trick. You know, you've seen that in a million movies, right? Of where we think he's in there, but it's spoiled in this one panel by showing that he's absolutely not in there. It's not a big deal. You know, it certainly works, but yeah, if it were being told on film, we actually wouldn't have seen him until he pops out of the shadows and not in the car.
Yo, Joe!
So Snake Eyes is just making his way through these Vipers, and he's just mowing everyone down. Storm Shadow is very upset, or Storm Shadow, Cobra Commander is very upset. Says, "Do something, Mindbender. It must be Snake Eyes coming to rescue Storm Shadow. That ravaged visage is quite distinctive, to say the least." And Mindbender says, "If it is Snake Eyes, luring him here into the cyber matrix is our best bet. He's a ninja after all." And he asks, "Are you still wearing the armor?" And Cobra Commander confirms it's pretty much for us. And Snake Eyes is fighting his way through these guys.
Yo, Joe!
I'm not going to add to the kill counts with these dudes he's fighting through because we don't really know. Like the other ones, there were neck snaps and stuff like that. So we're not really sure on this one. So I'm not going to prematurely add kill count stuff. Now on this page, we're back to that weird looking mouth environment, which I'm not a fan of. But it's weird, it's weird and it's creepy. And it does feel like the kind of thing that Mindbender would think is creepy. Cobra Commander says, this is just the appetizer. Like, you don't even know. And we realize that Snake Eyes is not at all affected by this. He's not disoriented at all. And he drops a smoke bomb or flash. Yeah, it's a smoke grenade.
Yo, Joe!
Mindbender says these air suspended particulates are interfering with the holographic lasers. So that ruins the whole danger room aspect of it. And Cobra Commander yells, "Switch over to something else, you ninny." Now, real quick, this drawing, if you're following along, of Cobra Commander is either A, stretched out because the illusion is now breaking, or B, drawn in a fever dream because his legs are approximately 9 feet tall. And I don't know what to make of it. It is it's frightening. It's a frightening looking drawing. It's really, really odd. Like, it's wildly out of place. But the only thing I can think of is they were going for like an effect of like still in the illusion and then like half in real life, half in the illusion. So I'll give it that. The clouds are almost making that happen, but they kind of don't. I wonder if part of this is just the production process. Like in an era of Photoshop and computer techniques today, would we be able to pull this image off a little better? If you're reading along, you'll see what I'm talking about. Cobra Commander's legs are, not even joking, his legs are 6 feet tall. His hips are sitting at 6 feet. And then the rest of his torso is on top. It's an awkward image, but I think that's what he's going for. So I'm not gonna slam it for that. But Snake Eyes has trashed the control panel. And Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes drops so actually, this is what Larry does great, and he's doing it here. He gets into like the technical details of some of the weaponry that Snake Eyes starts using. So Snake Eyes uses a 40 millimeter frag grenade that he shoots out of that blooper. But Larry makes sure that we know that it doesn't have enough time to arm at this close range. What this is a flechette round, like a giant shotgun shell loaded with steel darts, a major Geneva Convention no-no. So this is illegal to use in normal warfare, and Snake Eyes rigged it up because he doesn't care.
Yo, Joe!
And then on this page, we get a note from Larry that says, the round that follows is color-coded for white phosphorus, also known as Willy Pete. It burns real hot. And Snake Eyes has bypassed the internal fusing mechanism so that it ignites on contact right out of the tube. So this is another 2-page spread. And Snake Eyes fires this Willy Pete grenade 5 feet away directly into Cobra Commander, burning him alive. He's screaming in pain. His power circuits are burning out. some Vipers run in. Snake Eyes actually quickly shoots them. And I'm going to give him 3 kills on that because they don't get up and they don't stop him. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Meanwhile, Snake Eyes proceeds to beat down Cobra Commander very quickly, regardless of Cobra Commander's armory. And Cobra Commander is still on fire, which I like. I like the fire part because that's kind of similar to what Snake Eyes has gone through in his life.
Yo, Joe!
Except we get here to the final page, and it's Mindbender who has doused Cobra Commander with a fire extinguisher. But now we have Cobra Garmented Billy, Storm Shadow, and Baroness. And they're all very angry with Snake Eyes. And they say, I've always had it in for him and his snotty girlfriend. And Storm Shadow says, the Hard Master passed me over to name you as his heir, master of our ninja clan. Do you think I would ever forgive you for that? So now it's going to be Snake Eyes against the very people he came to save, who are brainwashed and being Cobra Troopers. That's a great ending. That's a great cliffhanger for it. Earlier, I was talking about the fight between Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander. I figured with him having the armored suit, we would have gotten an actual more of a fight out of it. But Snake Eyes just destroys him, which I'm not saying isn't right, but not what I was expecting. You put that suit of armor, you figure, oh, okay, that's so that he can last more than 30 seconds with Snake Eyes. And no, Snake Eyes just walks in and drops Willie Pete on him, and that's all she wrote. We get some, because it's issue 150, we get some great pinups by some really great Marvel artists of the time. Brett Blevins, if you're not familiar with his work, Power Pack. He did a lot of great stuff on Power Pack. He did, I believe he did the Fallen Angels miniseries too, I think. I like Brett Blevins stuff. It's very fun, very cheeky. It's kind of cartoony. It's got a world in comic books and a world in cartoon. It's good. But Brett Blevins gives us a really cool Zorana pinup. Tom Lyle, he did a lot of Spider-Man in this era. He gives us a fabulous Destro standing in front of a nuke blowing off because Destro runs the world. The Baroness, she's drawn by Pat Broderick. I haven't seen Pat Broderick stuff outside, but usually Pat Broderick's a DC guy. This Baroness is great. I think he does a really great job with it. He's got a very strong line. Broderick does. He did a lot of stuff on Firestorm. So if you want to see Firestorm and Captain Atom, a lot of 80s DC stuff. It's very distinctive. It's kind of heavy line work, like thick lines, and I would say it's an acquired taste. I acquired it though. I like it, but it's a very distinct look. So I think this Baroness looks great. Scarlet in her green and yellow though. I'm not a fan of that outfit. But this is by Alex Saviuk, who did a great run on Web of Spider-Man during this era. A real talent. I think he did the Spider-Man news like the newsprint, newspaper strip. I believe Saviuk did that for a long time. A real talent, really underrated guy, very workman, but very underrated, good storyteller. And we've got a fun Zartan here. This is by Randy Emberlin. And Zartan looks like a wrestler. He's in his new look, but over his shoulder is the old look to remind us of what we all love. And it's got the logo with each letter is a different texture. It's he looks like a menacing wrestler. Yeah, it's fun. Then we've got Roadblock by Ron Lim, Silver Surfers Ron Lim, Infinity Gauntlets Ron Lim. That's a great Roadblock. I really like it. Thick, blocky, shooting things. It's everything you want in a Roadblock picture. Possibly my favorite one of all these, though, Sal Buscema, the brilliant Sal Buscema, who also had a strong run on Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. Sal Buscema drawing Cobra Commander kicking a puppy. I love this picture. This, if you Cobra heads out there, and I know there are a lot of you Cobra heads out there who love Cobra more than you love G.I. Joe, if you don't have this tattoo on your body, I ask, are you even a Cobra fan? Because Cobra Commander kicking a puppy should be a tattoo on someone's body somewhere. It's perfect. It says everything about the character, and it's a nicely rendered drawing of Cobra Commander. Like, he looks great in this outfit, like in this version of it. It's really nice. Then we've got 2 pages of post boxes. Post boxes from the pits. We actually, it's funny. I have a strong feeling that there was an extra. They were waiting for an extra. I would bet. Let's just say, I have a feeling. I would bet they had they were waiting for an extra pinup that they may not have gotten, because we have 2 pages of post boxes here, and the one page actually wraps up with a next issue, and the other page is just an extra page of text. So that makes me think that at the last minute they were like, we don't have another pinup to do here, so we need another post box, put one together, and it just does. So I would bet you that's why we have 2 pages, because it's not like it's one page that carries over. It is 2 distinct. I finished my page for the day, sent it off to the printer. What's that? You need another page? All right, let me just make a whole new page of letters, because we didn't get that sweet pinup from Todd McFarlane that we were asking for. So got letters here from Mark Bonaguide out of Torrington, Connecticut. We've got Andrew Fix out of Moses Lake, Washington. He's giving grades. He's giving scripts A+, pencils B+, inkings A+, coloring A+, overall grade A+. How do you get an overall grade of an A+ if you're giving the pencils a B+? I don't know how you get that. How do you get to an A+ with a B+ involved? I know I just said I wasn't very good at my grades in college, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Danny Arnold out of London, the United Kingdom. John Yang out of Great Falls, Virginia. James McFadden, Auburn, Massachusetts. Lorenzo Marudi out of Sabah, East Malaysia. That's exciting. D.B. Watson out of India Atlantic, Florida. I've never heard of that city. Indi, Atlantic, Florida. Interesting. Clay Horucci out of Rothdrum, Idaho. And Jason Botticelli out of Williamsville, New York. And then we get a nice dismissed. That's a great 150. I gotta be honest. That's a lot of fun. I think I wanted a more protracted fight, but it also makes sense that Snake Eyes, even if Cobra Commander's all prepped up, Snake Eyes is making short work of him. It's a little gimmicky that Storm Shadow has to go there just to be captured in one issue, and just to give Snake Eyes a reason to go. Like, why wouldn't Snake Eyes just have gone with them? Because they got to rescue Billy, all that stuff. But I'm here for it. And yeah, it's good. So we're getting closer and closer. So hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.